So in last video, we understand what is the monetaristic point of view, and you understand their goal is not try to changing the money supply to changing the interest rate, but just based on the equation MV equal to PQ to understand the impact of monetary policies. So in this video, we're actually gonna look at how the monetaristic policy gonna help to reduce the inflation and also to solving the unemployment rate, high employment rate. So, the policy objective when we talk about fighting inflation is to reduce aggregate demand to fight inflation. So from Keynesian's perspective, we understand that he recommends to shrink the money supply, which will drive up the interest rate, then which will in turn to fighting against the inflation. However, from the monetaristic point of view, after we learn the model they are using, we understand that rates are already likely to be high, and an effective anti-inflation policy will cause nominal rate to go up, not go down, not go up. So, with the inflationary gap and interest rates are likely to be high, a decrease in the monetary supply will lower nominal interest rate, not rise them. So now what's the definition for nominal interest rate based on their definition? So the nominal interest rate is the interest rate we actually see and pay. So if you go to the bank, ask what is the mortgage rate? So that rate you got is called the nominal rate. And so the opposite scenario is called the real interest rate. So that is nominal rate minus the anticipated inflation rate, minus anticipation interest rate. So think about if the real interest rate is stable, changes in the nominal rate reflect only changing the anticipated inflation. So only changing the inflation, not interest rate. So that's why monetarists argue that when the Fed tightened the money supply, it will lower inflationary expectation, cause nominal interest rate to fall. And as the money supply shrinks, so the price level falls and anticipation inflation decrease, so the nominal interest rate falls and not rise. So that's what they proposed. So if we have inflation and then if we are decreasing the money supply, and then what we will see is the anticipation inflation rate will decrease, but the real interest rate shouldn't be affected. So the reason they propose this kind of idea is ultimately go back to the short-term and long-term rate. So the monetaristic advocate steady and a predictable change in the money supply. So instead of one-time shot increasing or decreasing the money supply, so they are believe steady and predictable changes because you don't want to just changing the nominal interest rate. So their belief is based on the idea that the short-term rate may have to be increased enough to stall the economic before aggregate demand should be adequately affected. So they were talking about the level of the effect. So you have to get a certain level before you can really touch the real interest rate. So whatever the monetary policy is doing, just affecting the nominal interest rate, in order to affect the real interest rate, you have to be it has to propose the steady and the predictable changes. So that is the fundamental idea from the monetaristic, and so they propose steady and predictable changes instead of just one-time shot. So you can see so much difference compared with the Keynesian's theory. Keynesian belief even as a short-term effect, it will affect interest rate and eventually affect the aggregate demand. But from the monetaristic policy, they said, no, that doesn't work like that. We actually should keep a stable and predictable changes. And because that is the true reason to affect the real interest rate, which will affect the aggregate demand curve. So that's pretty interesting. So this is one way to one goal we discussed how the monetaristic policy gonna affect the inflation against inflation. So next we will look at how the monetaristic policy gonna fighting against unemployment. So I hope you guys still remember for the Keynesians, what the Keynesian theory. So the Keynesian cure for unemployment is to expand monetary supply and a lower interest rate. Again, he's talking about the interaction between money supply and interest rate, which will in turn affect aggregate demand. However, for the monetaristic, what they think is they actually fear that an increasing in money supply will lead via an equation of change, we just see MV equal to PQ, since V and Q are constant. If you just increasing the M, so that will result in increasing P, which is to higher price level, causing inflation. So from the monetaristic perspective, expansionary monetary policy are not likely to lead us out of the recession. Rather, such policy might hit inflation problem on top of our unemployment woes. So which means what they propose that any monetary policy would be very helpful if we are having inflation. So we can, by steadily decreasing the money supply, we will be able to decrease our inflation. However, if we try to close that recessionary gap, they propose that a monetary policy is useless because the only goal for the monetary policy is just try to push our price level higher, not only not able to close the recessionary gap, but also will increasing our inflation, so that would be bad. So that's why they said monetaristic, they said when we talking about monetary policy, it will be very useful to fighting against the inflation, but not the other scenario. But from Keynesian point of view, so they said, okay, monetary policy is useful to close both recessionary gap and also the inflationary gap. So that's two different point of view. So which one works better? So that's what I want to discuss. Monetary policy, like fiscal policy, can affect the content of the GDP as well as its level. So when we talk about the mixed output, some industry like the residential housing market that rely on loans for purchasing suffer more harm for restrictive monetary policy than others. So monetary policy can affect the competitive structure of the market. Large, powerful corporations are more likely to obtain tight money than smaller ones. So also one thing I want to mention when we talk about monetary policy is it also have income redistribution effect like our fiscal policies. And so it's may not be that obvious, but definitely happening. So monetary policy restrain money between lenders. If the monetary policies try to reducing the money supply, it will push our interest rate up, and then that will benefit the borrower and hurting the lender. So that is the end of this chapter, and hopefully you have a thorough understanding about monetary policy. And so the discussion of this week will allow you to apply whatever you learned from this chapter to analyze the real world problem. So thank you for taking Econ 225 with Dr. Jiang, and I hope I will see you in other classes.